Hello, Life Groups. Thank you so much for gathering this week as we continue in our journey through the life of Moses. And this week, we're looking at Exodus chapter 3. Moses, at this point, is now 80 years old. He's living quietly in Midian, tending sheep with his family. And it's been 40 years since he fled Egypt. And he probably thought that that part of his life was over. But then God shows up, and through all places, a burning bush. And God calls Moses by name and tells him to take off his sandals because he is standing on holy ground. Now, this moment is part of a much bigger story and a much bigger picture. Back in Genesis, God promised land to Abraham and to his descendants, and through Joseph, the family ends up in Egypt. And 400 years later, the Israelites have turned into a massive population. They're now enslaved because the Egyptians thought they were going to be a threat. And they're enslaved, they're beaten down and forgotten by the Egyptians, but they're never forgotten by God. God hears their cries, and through a burning bush chooses Moses to lead his people out of slavery. Now, in his message, Pastor Brant had 3 key lessons from Moses' calling. And the first one is that God waited until he had Moses' attention. Sometimes you and I were too distracted to hear from God, but once Moses leaned in, God spoke. God gave Moses a specific calling. He says, "I'm sending you to Pharaoh." This wasn't vague, it was precise. And God had prepared Moses specifically for this specific calling. And Moses didn't feel qualified, and I think you and I can relate. His first words were, "Who am I?" Sound familiar? But here's the thing. God has a calling for you and for me. Maybe not a burning bush moment, but he wants your attention. He wants to use you. Maybe if you're a teacher or a nurse or a retiree or a student or whatever vocation you find yourself in, God can use you. If you belong to Jesus, you are in full-time ministry right where you are, even if it's not vocational ministry. And there are a lot of times that you might not feel able, you might not feel qualified or equipped, you might not even feel worthy of this calling, but it's not about your feelings. So I think the question we have to wrestle with and we have to ask ourselves and answer honestly is, am I listening or am I too distracted to hear? Am I doubting my worth instead of trusting my calling from God? So next time someone asks you what you do, maybe you respond with, "I'm a minister of the gospel," and then you talk about your vocation. Because your true calling is bigger than your career. It's an eternal calling. So let God get your attention. Let him lead you into your calling, and let's take as many people to heaven with us as we can. Enjoy your discussion today.